Welcome to another video. I'm Chantel,
And I'm Amber.
and today on Show and Tell Books, we're going to be talking about Meghan Quinn.
So I first started reading Meghan Quinn last year, and her book, A Not So Meet Cute, was like all over social media. It was a new release last year, and I think it was the first one that Chantel read, and she hated it. And I was like, no, no, you need to give Meghan Quinn another shot, but don't read those type of covers. You need to read her cartoon drawn covers. So I think that there's a big difference in the Meghan Quinn content between her two cover types.
That was very sound advice because the covers that have a half naked male lead on them, while they are attractive, they are smut books, 100%. Whereas the ones with slightly more cartoon covers, they are a little bit more Hallmark meets smut, which is a lot more up my alley. So I'm thankful that Amber recommended those because now I do have a ton of Meghan Quinn books that I genuinely love to read because they're cute and light and fun. So that's what we're going to talk about.
I think we should talk about our favorite of hers first, which I think is the reunion, right? Is that your favorite one too?
It's between the reunion and Runaway Groomsmen, honestly. Those both are
Yeah.
just so fantastic.
So let's do the reunion. It was published first, and was the first of her small town romances that I read, where it's a six-person point of view, which is a big undertaking and usually like not my favorite. But she did such a beautiful job with it. So it's focused on a, a set of siblings who are going to celebrate their parents' 50th anniversary, I think,
Mhm.
and have to travel back to their small town in Washington where their parents own a sporting goods store and plan the 50th anniversary. And each sibling has their strengths and weaknesses.
It's pretty common thought whenever you have more than like three or four POVs, it just gets really complicated. So I think what I loved about this one, while there are six, they interlap really well because it's each of the siblings and then their love interest. So because of that, because of the backstories the love interests have within the family as well, it actually doesn't make it confusing. Of all the books with like multiple point of views, I actually really liked this one because it didn't feel like it stunted the growth of the book. It really, Meghan Quinn did well to use each of the voices and their individuality to kind of help the narrative and bring a like a 3D perspective to the reunion that is happening and all of the drama that is entailing within the family.
I think the humor in the reunion is pretty spot on. Like some of her other books will just throw out the Highlands Wing or the Mother Road as examples of the cartoon
Cartoon
covers that
covers.
have too crass of humor, in my opinion.
Yeah,
But in the reunion, I feel like the humor was just spot on. Like it had me laughing out loud.
I think the way I describe the reunion is like woodsy elegant, which is like a weird way to do it, but it kind of fits the vibe. I think that is what I loved is like this one was light and fluffy, just like a lot of Meghan Quinn books are. However, it was addressing real issues as well. I felt like it was something that could have actually happened,
Yeah.
which I love when authors do that when it's still a love story, but you feel like it could happen to your next door neighbor, right? Or if you went to a small town in Washington, that this is some story that you actually could have heard.
Let's talk about the Runaway Groomsmen because that one was probably funnier in my opinion.
It is. That one has a lot more quips in it and a lot more opportunities for it, but it also is a lighter plot and a different plot than the reunion, right? So like what Amber
Yeah.
said, all these siblings are coming back in town for this reunion. So because of that, and there's like a lot of pressure, and there's going to be like a changing of the torch between the dad and the brothers to take over, and like so there's a lot more drama happening. So because of that, I think the reunion ended up being a slightly heavier, not actually heavy at all, but like is
More
yeah, slightly
dramatic.
heavy topic. Yes, yes, more dramatic subject line. So because of that, the humor would feel slightly out of place. Whereas with Runaway Groomsmen, you've got Hollywood screenwriter Sawyer, who inadvertently threw together his ex and his best friend. So that's where we get the title Runaway Groomsman, is because he literally just like ditched the wedding in the middle of the wedding, not even like going out the back door. No, he like stormed up the aisle, like, screw this, I'm out of here. Gets in his car and just drives until he like almost runs out of gas. Finds this bar in the middle of nowhere, gets super drunk. He runs into Fallon and her best friend. And so she takes him over to one of the cabins, drops him off, and she's like, hey, he's going to be out of here tomorrow. Except he decides to hide out there to wait for the blowback from this, you know, super ultra A-list wedding to go away. And also so he can figure out what his next screenplay is going to be, because he's hit a dry patch with writer's block. And so she's reluctant, but she's like, whatever. So while she's fixing up projects, he is bonding with her grandpa, and her grandpa's, since he has Alzheimer's, it's really cute, the relationship that they start to develop, because Sawyer starts fixing up projects on the outside of the cabins and stuff with the instructions and oversight of the grandpa. And Fallon doesn't know. She's just thinking this is like magically happening in a way, until she realizes that it's Sawyer. And so it's them, their love story as this all is going on. It is, I think, one of my favorite books I've ever read.
Well, and I just loved like how it started off funny because as Sawyer's running away from the wedding, he loses his shoe. And that's a part of the book, like little quips and jokes throughout the rest of it. And so I just,
Cinderella.
yes. I think when I told you about The Runaway Groomsman, I was like, Sawyer is the best book man ever written. And I still feel like that holds up, where he just is human. Like he has flaws, but they're not like annoying flaws.
It was cute because he's not your traditional male character when it comes to smut or rom-com books, right? Like Sawyer has some stuff that he is dealing with. And because of that, the physicality in the book is actually very different for a smut book, which I kind of liked that perspective a lot more, simply because so often, you know, in smut books, it's like just trying to get in the girl's pants or vice versa. But with this one, Sawyer was focused on developing their personal relationships without the physicality involved.
The other thing I appreciate about The Runaway Groomsman is I feel like there were so many references to Meghan Quinn's other novels. And I, of the ones that I read of hers, I think it had the most references to her other plot lines or other stories than any of the other books.
Probably because Sawyer also, I think, didn't he screenwrite for the
Love
company
Mart.
that takes,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
So Amber's read like 40 of her 50 books published.
Oh,
I've only
no. I've only read 28 of her 50 books published. I'm
well,
just
it's because
over
I don't
half.
know how Meghan Quinn does it, but she publishes like a book every 2 months,
Yeah.
which is simultaneously impressive and almost like psychopathic in a way, because I don't know how she does it, because all of the books are really cute. And to make
Yeah.
matters worse, she like intersperses her characters throughout other books. So then it just makes this giant web that's super tangled and complicated. But I agree. I don't know a lot of the references because I haven't read a ton of the books. But when you recommended Runaway Groomsman and I read it, then that's when you told me about the Get Lucky series, because that's the town that they kind of reference occasionally in it. I think that's one thing I love a ton about most of the books that I've read by Meghan Quinn is they're all real. Like both characters have legit problems with trauma and backlash and all the stuff like associated with it that we would have in real life. And I think sometimes it's really entertaining when you're reading a popular book talk book and the main character has something that's not relatable at all, right? Like I think of, I always come back to it. I shouldn't hate on it so much, but like the Ballinger sisters, right? How many of us are ever gonna become so popular and famous, but then also like throw it all away and get put in jail so that our dad sends us and exiles us to like a town in Washington to open up a bar? Like that plot line is so weird and not at all relatable. But like Meghan Quinn does well at making her characters, even if it's something outlandish and crazy like that, she'd throw in something in there to help her readers actually relate to what's going on in the story. The Getting Lucky series is also a series about brothers, um, with each book focusing on a different brother. So the first book, That Second Chance, tells the story of Griffin, who's the oldest brother. His wife, like his high school sweetheart, passed away right after they went on a trip to New Orleans, where they all got cursed about being unlucky in love. So because his wife passed away, like it kind of cemented it in everyone's brain that it's a legit curse. So anyway, Griffin has sworn off dating because of this curse. Enter this new school teacher who nearly runs over a moose, so she like crashes into a tree. And he's a volunteer firefighter, so he goes and rescues her. She's freaking out. She's had a car accident in the past. And so she's like shirtless and like screaming bloody murder in the car because she feels like she's gonna die. And he's just like, what is going on? And it's their love story of, and because of how they met, there's a lot of humor introduced into it and a lot of like light banter, and it's entertaining.
The family dynamics in the reunion and the Port Snow series, the Knightley Brothers Getting Lucky series, is so quality. Like the banter between those siblings makes,
Sibling group chat
yes,
is spot on.
it's so good. I think the second book, That Forever Girl, was funny and interesting, but it was told in flashbacks of their high school and college romance and present day, because Rowan, the second brother, had like a terrible injury that resulted in an amputation of his leg, ending
Mhm.
his like hopes of professional football career, I think.
Mhm.
His longtime girlfriend, Harper, like they were best friends as children, started dating in high school. They went to college together. They were gonna get married. I think they were actually
Mhm.
engaged
They were
when
engaged.
the accident happened. And he, in his inability to cope and traumatic experience, broke it off and really hurt her. And so they went separate ways, but then she found herself back in Port Snow, and the town kept pushing them together, and just the
Yes,
family
they
group
were
chat.
perfect for each other. Yes. Oh
Yeah,
gosh, yes. Number two is slightly heavier again in topics
yeah.
because Rowan is again still dealing with all the trauma that came from having his dreams literally yanked from him, and there was nothing he could have done about it. And then also Harper, her healing from the hurt he caused her, but also her coming to terms with like her role, which wasn't actually a role, but like her role in his injury as well. So it's a really raw and painful book, but
Yeah.
also really beautiful. Again, Hallmark, like 100% Hallmark.
But I'm really looking forward to The Vacation Wars, which comes out next month and takes place in Greece. And that's pretty much all I know about it. But when you tell me Megan Quinn wrote it and it takes place in Greece, I'm sold.
Megan Quinn probably has like a 90% accuracy rate, at least for like the books that I read. Amber does filter all of her books for me. So there are books when Amber's like, do not read this. And I'm like, all right, I'm not going to do that. But overall, Megan Quinn does really well at creating a really enticing story with decent characters. And like, they're usually a win.
I was trying to plot out how all of her books are connected and like which characters know which and which ones are referenced throughout the book. And it's impressive how she does it. And I don't even know that she knows how she's connected all of these.
It might just be like, oh, let's pull this person from here. And I don't actually know if this fits in the storyline, but we're just going to do it.
Well, actually, I think all of the references I've read so far actually fit, like, and have been the character acting
Accurate.
the way you would expect, like an accurate representation of them, which even more kudos for being able to pull that off. One of her Brenton Wood Boys books had the funniest reference to the Mother Road, which the Mother Road, if you like crass humor, is one of her cartoon covers I would recommend. If you don't like crass humor. Well, the steer away from it. Um, but Lincoln and his girlfriend, I cannot remember her name, are talking about romance novels that they saw on their mother's shelves one day, and she just references The Mother Road and Meghan Quinn as an author in this. And it just was so well done and so funny that months later, I still think about that reference and how beautifully well done it was.
So we definitely recommend if you want to dive into the Meghan Quinn series, um, but don't necessarily want like a traditional smut book. Start with one of the cartoon covers, especially The Reunion or Runaway Groomsmen. Those were our favorites. If you want more of the traditional smut books, we've got an entire blog over on our website about which books you should read and check out. So hit that up and check out another video.
Yeah.
Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you guys for another episode. Sorry, I just wrapped up because I was like,